guys, welcome back to my channel. So first of all, I just want to say that I am so sorry that I have not posted a video in a week. It feels like a lifetime in YouTube time that I have not posted a video, but I have just been super exhausted lately. Like, I'll come home and I will just knock out on the couch. I actually just was asleep like 20 minutes ago and I had to wake up because I was like, I need to make a video. So here I am making a video for you guys. I didn't want to make a video last week whenever I was just super tired because I want to give you guys some really good content and not just like content that I'm throwing together just to put a video out. So I'm awake and hopefully this is good content because I really planned and thought about this video. So today I am actually doing the pros and cons of marrying young. Now if you guys know and follow me, you know that I don't really like to post about negative things about like being married or about the military or anything like that, because I feel like too many times people post about the negative and I just don't want to add on to that. But I feel like these cons need to be addressed whenever it comes to being married young. But I also want to give the cons, but also give you some advice on how you can overcome those cons a little bit and kind of tell you how your marriage doesn't have to be defined by those cons, if that makes sense. So anyways, just gonna get on with this video because I feel like I'm not making sense right now. So anyways, let's get started. Okay, so first I'm going to start with the pros, and I have 4 of each and I just want to talk about them, explain them, and yeah. And so the first one is form good habits together and break bad habits easier. So this is a pro for getting married young, and I feel like you get to form habits together really easy because you're just growing. And so when you get married young, you are able to form a lot of like adult habits together, like habits on being financially responsible, or good habits of like taking care of your home, or just simple habits of like your nightly routine, your morning routine, or just like really good habits you get to form together. Because whenever you're older, you kind of each have your own habits that you develop and then you merge them. And sure, you can grow in some habits, but whenever you're younger, you get to form those habits together. Now on the other side, marrying young is good for your marriage because you can break bad habits easier. So say, you know, I'm just gonna name off a few of like, he's a drinker, say maybe he smokes, maybe he or she, you know, this could be she things too, does things bad that can affect your marriage. If you are young in your marriage and those things start to affect your marriage and you both decide that these things need to change, it is going to be way easier for him or her to change because you're young, your brain's still developing, you can change your habits easier because of that, and you haven't been doing it for a long time, like a long time meaning like adulthood. So it's easier for you to change those bad habits because you haven't been doing it for super long. And so if you were older, say you've been doing this habit for 30 years, well, the brain stops developing after about 25 years old. So if you're 30 and you just get married and you're having problems in your marriage because of some bad habits you have, it's gonna take quite a bit of time for you to overcome that habit because now your brain has stopped developing. That habit is engraved in your brain and you have to work harder at overcoming those habits. And so marrying young can really address some bad habits that we all have because you're able to work together at a young age to overcome these issues in your marriage. So the second one that kind of ties along with that one is you get to grow together. And something that's super cool is me and Connor have gotten to see each other grow in different areas. Like I've gotten to see him grow in leadership and he's gotten to see me grow just being a supportive and loving wife. And it's been amazing to see each other grow like into adulthood because we met when we were 16 years old and now we're 23, and just to see the progress and like growth that we both have gone through is such an amazing journey because I get to encourage him and he gets to encourage me, and because we're best friends we get to bounce encouragement off of each other and just impact each other in a major way that helps us grow so much stronger. And that's one of my favorite things about being a young married couple is that you don't have to grow alone. And granted, there are a lot of things that you can grow in whenever you're single and married later, but I think there are a ton of things that you grow in once you get married. Like one specifically is selfishness. I feel like you cannot grow in selflessness until you get married because you are really challenged in that. And so it's pretty cool to see that we both have grown in so many ways because we got married young. So again, to go off the last one, I feel like I'm doing pretty good because I keep like bouncing off the one before. But number 3 is that you get to experience life with your best friend. I have always heard growing up, and like I'm sure we've all heard on social media, like, why would you want to get married young? Like, don't you want to experience life? Don't you want to like go on adventures and travel? Don't you want to have fun? Don't you want to like do all these things? And I just like laugh and think to myself, like, I'm doing those things. I get to travel with my best friend. I get to have fun with my best friend. I get to do life together with my best friend. Why would I want to do that alone? Like, I am experiencing those things. I am having fun. I'm not ruining my 20s because I'm married. If anything, I'm making it so much better because I get to do life with my best friend. And I feel like there's nothing greater than that, because you get to laugh together through experiences. You get to travel together and see new places with your best friend and have fun with your best friend. And it may not be like fun, like worldly fun of like going to parties and getting drunk and like doing all of these crazy things, but I feel like being married to my best friend is so much greater than going to like a meaningless party or, you know, just stuff like that. And number 4, one of the pros of being married young is there's so much less baggage in your relationship. And so that's really beneficial, because when you get married, you may not think about it before you get married, but once you get into marriage, all that baggage just kind of spills out, like lack of worth in a past relationship, and you feel worthless in your marriage even though they chose you, but you still have that baggage, or you know, you have anger towards them even though your anger was from a long time ago. And you know, it's just like easier to work through in your marriage when you don't have all of this baggage that you've been carrying around. So yeah, so now we are at the cons, and I promise they aren't too terrible, but again, like I said, I will say the con, but then also how we can grow in that area of marriage as a young person. So the first con is you don't get to experience being independent. And I say this because I get a lot of emails from you know, military relationships saying when they go on deployment or they leave for boot camp or leave, you know, for something, that it feels like, you know, their other half is gone, or they can't survive, or, you know, all of these really kind of dramatic things. But I've totally been there. But it's because when we are in a relationship young and then we get married young, we never get to experience being alone and being independent. So for people who get married later in life, they usually, you know, graduate college, go and live by themselves in a major city, maybe to get a job, and they have to do grown-up things by themselves. They have to do their finances, they have to go to work, they have to make themselves dinner, they have to be alone basically all the time unless they're with friends or family or whatever. And so they get to experience and grow in being alone, whereas we as people who get married young don't get to experience that, because we go from living in our parents' house to maybe going to college, and we live in a dorm or we live with friends, and then we get married and we live with someone, and so we're always relying on someone to fill our void of loneliness, and we never really learn what it's like to be independent. Now there's some people, like for me, I grew up with a mom who was a single mom, and so I learned to be very independent, but at the same time I also never lived alone, and so I really had to grow in learning to be independent. And so learning to be independent is a growing process for those of us who did get married young. So it is possible to learn to be independent, but because again, we didn't not get married and live by ourselves and establish independency, it's a little bit harder for us because now we have to learn it as we are married. So it's a little difficult, but that is a con of being married young, is that you actively have to learn to be independent. So yeah. Okay, and so the second one is gonna seem a little bit harsh, but just bear with me, and that is the lack of maturity. I said this in one of the pros that the human brain doesn't stop developing until after 25 years old. And this can be hard whenever you get married young because you aren't mature, you have a lack of understanding of a lot of things, of, you know, maybe the male brain, you don't really understand the male brain, men don't really understand women, and so there's a lot of butting heads because you don't really understand being an adult yet, taking care of finances, learning how to work together, not being so selfish, and being understanding. And so because of that lack of maturity, there can can be a lot of arguments whenever you first get married, because you really have to work out the kinks of working together. But again, this one is something that you can definitely grow in. For people who are married later in life, it is easier for them because they've grown in maturity a lot longer, but it is not impossible for those of us who are married young. So number 3 is one that everyone really struggles with, but for the most part, young marriages struggle with this a lot, and that is financial irresponsibility. And there's a saver and a spender in about like 99% of marriages. There's always one of each. And for older marriages, there could be a saver and there can be a spender. But if you're a spender and you married later in life and you were independent most of the time before you got married, even though you were a spender, you still learned how to take care of your finances because you lived by yourself. You had to take care of finances. Even though you were a spender, you needed to learn how to budget, because if not, you were gonna go broke, because the only person who was paying your bills was you. And then the same thing for the saver. You know, they were good at saving, they lived by themselves, they were able to learn how to save better. And so when you marry later in life, you're able to compromise better because the spender still knows how to budget and save, and the saver obviously knows how to save. And so when they come together, they understand each other a little bit more because they've been doing it on their own for quite a while. When you're younger, you don't have much experience in dealing with money. You maybe have like your 4 college years that you dealt really with money. And if you're a spender, then you most likely, when going into a marriage with a saver in a young marriage, don't know how to budget, don't know how to save, and so it causes a lot of tension because the spender wants to spend, the saver wants to save, and you don't really know how to compromise because of lack of maturity and understanding. And so again, it just causes a lot of arguments, can cause divorce if you're not compromising well and communicating well. And so this is a huge issue when it comes to young marriages. But again, this is something you can grow in, but you both have to desire growth in this area. So financial irresponsibility is definitely something that is a con in young marriages if you don't know how to communicate and handle this in a proper way. Okay, so number 4 of the cons is unrealistic expectations. And I have personally dealt with this in my marriage, but unrealistic expectations is, I feel like young marriages have this idea of the fairy tale marriage of, you know, you're so young and you get married and you're like, he's just gonna be perfect, we're gonna have a fantastic marriage, you know, we may fight a little bit, but you know, we're just gonna be like perfect and happy, and like it's just gonna be amazing. And I feel like older marriages, again, they have grown in maturity, they have lived in the world longer, and so they've experienced heartbreak and you know, maybe more breakups, and so they're a little bit more bitter towards relationships and stuff like that. And so when they finally get married, they don't have that fairy tale idea of marriage. They know that marriage is hard work and they need to be committed, and they have less of a fairy tale perspective. And so young marriages, because they have this fairy tale perspective, it is definitely a wake-up call when you go into marriage and you have to work really hard at it. You know, they're not always perfect. Everyone falls short of the glory of God, and you're actually experiencing that in marriage because your husband just failed you or your wife just failed you. And it can be really shocking and heartbreaking when you are a young married couple and you're going through so many difficult things. And so I think just acknowledging that marriage is not a fairy tale and it definitely takes work. And not to say that marriage isn't amazing, but it's not like just let's run into the sunset and everything's gonna be great and perfect. And yeah, so a way that we can just definitely work on this, young couples, is just knowing the realities of marriage is hard, and knowing that we do need to be committed to each other and love each other through all things, and knowing that, you know, you're not gonna just ride into the sunset and everything's gonna be great. But I know no one wants to go through heartbreak, so just acknowledging that we are all fallen people and we do make mistakes, and so we just need to overcome those and just love each other through those issues and come together stronger. So yeah, that's the end of my video. I hope you guys enjoyed these pros and cons of being married young. There are definitely a lot of pros of being married young and just experiencing, again, life with your best friend and learning so many things. I feel like whenever you're younger, you become so much much wiser than someone who got married later in life, because again, you do learn so many things in marriage that challenge you, because you're living with another person. You know, you have to compromise yourself, you have to learn selflessness, you have to learn generosity and love at a young age, and you think that you know those things, but then you live with someone and you're like, I don't know those things. And so you just learn a lot of things. But I would encourage all of you, and something that me and Connor love to do, is we love to sit down and listen to older couples and listen to how they got through marriage and the things that they struggled with that we can work on. And I feel like that's something that's lost in our generation, where we as young people think that we know everything and don't want to listen to the older generation. And so I would encourage you young married people to just listen to those people who are older and have been married for a long time, and just ask them, like, what are some good tips that you could share with me? And just really picking their brain to strengthen your marriage, because I really feel like young marriages are so amazing and you can learn so much. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and it made sense. I hope I wasn't like rambling or anything. But if you guys liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have not. And I love you guys so much, and I promise I will be posting another video very soon and not slacking like I was. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!